Sam Tate here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm your host, Derrick Tate, alongside Samantha Holt. Sam, it was a rough week one of fantasy football for me. How'd it go for you before we jump into everything?
It was brutal. I want to say there was one league that, triumphed over the rest. But every time I hit refresh, it was just worse and worse and worse. And yeah, I was so happy to have football back. And I hate it when people complain, oh, my players are hurt. I don't want to watch the rest of the season. Well, we wait all year. We know what's going to happen. It just sucks when all the players that get hurt are on your fantasy team.
Well, not only injuries. I mean, there are some injuries that we're going to touch on real quick, and we're going to kind of talk about some of the fallout from those injuries, namely Hunter Henry, Darius Geis, Tyreek Hill, and even Joe Mixon comes to mind as far as some of the injuries that came away from week one. But it's more so those performances that when you had high expectations or you were high on someone all year, for me, Kerryon Johnson, and he played against last year's worst rushing defense, to see him put up the numbers that he did in a game that went to overtime. Yeah. Those are really, in particular, the tough ones to take, the ones where you have those high expectations for players.
Absolutely. And then they just completely plummet. It's brutal to watch as the numbers tick away and you're like, I got one carry. And never mind. There's a flag.
So, I mean, we are going to talk, though. Let's go ahead and hit some of the news and notes first, though. Sure. So we did find out some news about Hunter Henry, and it just feels like this poor guy cannot stay healthy. He's kind of snake bitten. He's expected to miss somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks with a knee fracture that came out earlier today. So what does this do fantasy-wise in a vacuum for all the other players there in Los Angeles?
I mean, I think it definitely boosts targets, obviously, all around. I mean, I think what was great was how Austin Ekeler performed. So that was exciting. So they definitely have their outlets. They're going to have to resort things out. But it's just so brutal to see him get hurt again when we were also bummed to obviously see him get hurt in the preseason last year. So we just want this guy out there. We know he's talented, but just not being able to see that is gonna really suck.
I think it gives a little bump to both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Yeah. Not that you were not going to start them anyway, but it makes me feel even more bullish about starting them. And then Austin Ekeler is really, I mean, we're going to get into some other sell high candidates, but it was a hell of a debut as Austin Ekeler being the lead dog in this backfield. Scored 3 touchdowns. I know that game went to overtime. He scored his 3rd touchdown in overtime, but you experienced this last year in particular, as many other fantasy owners did, but you in particular as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan with Le'Veon Bell. And we saw James Conner in week 1 have a fantastic week. Yeah. And there was this little feeling like, well, do we sell on James Conner? Do we hold him? Is Bell coming back? We didn't know at the time. And of course, we have all the information available to us now. But do we feel confident that we should hold on to Austin Ekeler, or are you willing to sell high if someone's willing to pay top dollar, like in exchange, like a top running back 1 or wide receiver 1 or something like that?
I wouldn't want anything less than something number 1 in return for him, because until anything moves for Melvin Gordon, especially with the amount of targets that he's getting, there's no reason to get rid of him. I mean, unless you're really hurting on another position, then there's no reason to me to let go of him.
Well, think about, again, I'm just throwing this out there in a vacuum. If someone were to offer you Devontae Adams for Austin Ekeler, would you do it right now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Just, I mean, granted, I don't think that many people are going to offer, or maybe like Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, someone that like a top flight wide receiver that had a rough
wide receiver. Then I would probably do that.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and continue to run down some of the other injuries now. Most folks already know, but we'll go ahead and hit it anyway. Tyreek Hill with a weird, if you want to go ahead and try to discuss or describe this injury, because it sounds like something where it was located around his collarbone, like a joint. He's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. But it didn't even seem like the offense missed a beat without him. They still dropped 40 on the Jaguars.
Yeah, no, they did not have trouble finding targets, did they?
No.
that was not a difficulty for them. I'm pretty sure that he was like, oh, it's okay, I got other guys. So pluses and minuses, sucks to have him gone, but someone's going to absorb all the targets, and it looks like Sammy Watkins is taking a ton of them. So that's awesome for him and for those that probably drafted him super late. I feel like he's someone that you probably are getting a lot of value out of right now, depending on where you drafted him. I think that he probably went later than people pulled. Like, I wasn't searching for Watkins early in my drafts. I mean, if he fell, great. But he had 11 targets, 198 yards, insane numbers. So that's really exciting just to hold off in as you're in between. I know for me, I'm a Tyreek Hill owner, so had to run to the waiver wires this week, pick someone up. I picked up Tyrell Williams, and I also picked up Deshaun Jackson just as backups because it's such a deep league. But so I think that with Kansas City, you don't have to worry about someone not getting the targets there. There's going to be someone picking up everything.
Do you think if you're desperate in a deeper league in PPR, are you willing to take a stash or a stab in the flex spot with Mecole Hardman with Tyreek Hill on the sideline?
I mean, yeah, depending on your league and how deep it is. I think that with just how many targets are available with Mahomes throwing to you, I think that it wouldn't be detrimental to you to try that.
Okay. So another injury, Darius Geis has already been ruled out this upcoming week. Luckily, they held on to Adrian Peterson, even though he was a healthy scratch this past Sunday against
first time in his career, yeah.
Yeah, very, very weird. I mean, clearly Gruden wants to get a good look at this kid that they spent a second-round pick on. He can't – speaking of guys that can't stay healthy and a little bit snake-bitten, first regular season action for Darius Geis in his second year after missing his entire rookie year. It was tough sledding against that Philadelphia front. And I kind of figured that was going to be the case. But Adrian Peterson, so tell me some of your thoughts. I mean, obviously, if you can get him, if you can go out and get him right now, I think he's worth a spot start. I like him hell of a lot more in standard leagues than I do in PPR because Chris Thompson looked like Chris Thompson. So how much of your free agent budget, if Adrian Peterson was available, say just, in a vacuum again, you need a running back, how much would you be willing to spend on him?
I mean, I think it depends on also everything is league dependent, but I would spend, anywhere around $10 for him.
Okay.
It's week one. You've got money to spend. I'm always one of those people too in leagues that you have to bid on players. At the end of the season, I still have money saved because I'm always super cautious with spending in the season just for bye weeks and all those fill-ins. But yeah, I think it's fine.
I mean, I feel as if when you have uncertainty with a position group and you finally get some clarity after week one, I don't mind dropping over half my budget if I feel like that player, his role is going to be cemented and I can start, I feel like he's going to be a viable flex option for me for the rest of the year, a la Phillip Lindsay last year after he burst onto the scene in week one and we saw what his snap count was. And speaking of snap counts, so let's go ahead and start jumping into some sell highs. We already mentioned, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson had an absolute monster week. Speaking of monster weeks, though, pretty much every Baltimore Raven went nuts against the Miami Dolphins. Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, and surprisingly, Hollywood Brown, the rookie from Oklahoma. We didn't really see much of him. He was dealing with a foot injury for most of the offseason. But holy hell, can that young man fly?
Yeah, that speed was incredible. Watching tape, it doesn't do it justice, like how fast that guy is.
But Jackson looks sharp, though. So tell me, but it was against the one thing I want to take it with a grain of salt because he was playing against the Miami Dolphins. So I'm going to ask you, is it more that he was playing against the Dolphins, or does Lamar Jackson look like a completely different quarterback than he did in his rookie season?
I think they did a really great job with him in the offseason this year and giving him confidence to make these throws and giving him confidence to spread the ball around because there were targets spread everywhere for the receivers in Baltimore. And I feel like for me, there's not a lot of people that probably are drafted Lamar Jackson as their number one quarterback. So I feel like you could easily sell him to an owner that just pulled someone maybe like Ben Roethlisberger. That I'm sorry about Ben, but he shit the bed. It was horrible.
Yeah. So, by the way, is there another way to describe when a player has a really horrible week and he's in your lineup rather than just shitting the bed?
No, because everything is something related to to just shit. Like it's just everything has to do with poop. And so it's like he took a major deuce. Like I dropped the deuce. I don't know. Like there's so many things, and all of it's related to poop. It was all horrible and shitty, and it makes me sad. Little minor outburst regarding my Steelers. I'm sorry. I will hold
skid mark on the underpants of society. So, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna be real quick. Lamar Jackson, yeah. I mean, he exploded, and he did much of his damage with his arm. We didn't really see what he can do. What we already know he's already capable of doing as far as running the ball. He's one of the most dynamic athletes in all of football.
Yep.
So I will say I'm intrigued for him for the rest of the season, but he's not going to be playing the Miami Dolphins every week.
No.
If somebody is willing to ridiculously overpay for him, I'm okay because there's so much depth at quarterback anyway. You can find other guys on the waiver wire. So if you could sell him high, I'm willing to do that. But I'm actually very confident in Mark Ingram, and I do like Hollywood Brown. I don't expect him to do what he did in week 1 every week, but I think he's the best pass catching weapon they have on that offense as far as at the wide receiver group. Yeah. So I love Mark Ingram for the rest of the year, and definitely Hollywood Brown is worth an add. And if you're thin at wide receiver or you want to just try to hit a home run, he's definitely a guy worth putting in your wide receiver 2 or 3 spot.
Yeah. I mean, just going back onto the targets that were spit around, I mean, their tight end, Mark Andrews, was leading in targets for week 1 with 8. So, I mean, they peppered the ball literally everywhere. So I think that Marquise Brown is someone that you can stash, probably really fun DFS play, but I don't think that you can necessarily just push him into your wide receiver 2 position at this point.
Did you see that Mark Andrews scored with Robert Griffin III under center, and they went for it on 4th and goal, up by like 40 points. Oh man, Harbaugh, that's a savage move, man.
Yeah, that was brutal. That's really salt in a wound right there.
Poor bastard. Are there any other sell high candidates? For me, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a guy that, I mean, he had a great game, and he certainly looks like the focal point of this offense, but we saw a good version of Marcus Mariota this week in week 1. I don't know what the hell to expect on a weekly basis from Mariota. I feel like this defense is going to be good. The Titans are going to be a good football team. They're going to be pushing for that wild card spot. Hell, they may even take the division in a year where there's no Andrew Luck, and I don't really know what to expect from the Houston Texans. I know their offense is going to be amazing, but it looked like they missed Jadeveon Clowney a little bit on Monday Night Football against the Saints. So I'm going to go ahead, and if I can get top dollar for Derrick Henry, that's who I'm trying to get rid of.
Yeah, and I feel like Derrick Henry went a bit later too, so I feel like you can afford to sell him high. I mean, I wonder though if they're just going to keep leaning on him if Mariota can't, fling the ball the way he needs to, just because he had 19 carries. Can't teach that.
No, and Henry is definitely a workhorse. It's just the ones that scare me though, Sam, are the ones where the Titans fall behind.
Yeah.
If the Titans fall behind, that's when I feel like you're going to see a ton of Dion Lewis. Derrick Henry is not going to be somebody that gives you that safe PPR floor catching 3 to 5 passes a week for 30, 40 yards. I mean, I know he busted a 75-yard screen where he went completely untouched. The Browns looked like the old Browns, which was very head scratching just because I expected them to be much better than they were. But so that's who my guy is that I'm trying to sell high. If you have any shares of Derrick Henry, I would try to offload him.
Sure.
And of course, if I say that, then he's probably going to run for 102 scores this upcoming week. I'm snake bitten. Anyway, anybody else as far as sell high though before we move on to buy low?
I mean, to me, this is going to sound really bad, but I feel like you could sell Tom Brady pretty high right now if you wanted to. You can get top dollar for him based on the stats that he put up. But just, I mean, he's the GOAT. He's obviously amazing, but I feel like he went late in a lot of drafts. You probably have a second quarterback that you drafted if you picked up Tom Brady. Someone in my league, my work league, has Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, and he's super excited because he's like, oh, I'm going to keep Brady. I can totally get rid of Mahomes.
Could do that.
Yeah.
Or you can realize that I think the Patriots are still going to be a team that really relies on their running game.
Absolutely. No, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I think he's an idiot for wanting to
to sell Mahomes.
I'm saying he's an idiot. Like, but I think that you could easily sell Brady high because there's going to be a lot of people that are that amped after that game to be like, hell yeah, I want him back on my team. So I think that he's someone you could sell high.
Correct. So I'm going to go ahead now on buy low, and I'll lead it off. I've got Aaron Jones. He's not going to be speaking of teams that you're not going to be playing every single week. Thank the Lord, the Packers don't have to play the Chicago Bears every single week.
Another player on my team. Horrible.
Yeah, no. It was. I have multiple shares of Aaron Jones myself, so that was particularly tough to sit there and just watch that offensive shit fest that was in Chicago to kick off the NFL season. I mean, it feels like it was like a long time ago because we had so much football on Sunday and Monday. But I do want to say that if someone is low on Aaron Jones, go and get him. I think that that defense for the Packers. I do think that Mitchell Trubisky had just an awful game, but the Packers defense did show a little bit of life. I think they'll be able to run the football a little bit more with Matt LaFleur trying to get Aaron Rodgers to buy into his system.
Yeah.
I think that Aaron Jones, you're not going to see many dud performances from him this year. And if you can get him for a fair price, which I think you can, I would do it.
Yeah, and I think looking at the weeks ahead, I mean, we've got Minnesota coming up, then Denver, and then Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a really tough run defense. But I think aside from, the obvious few, I think that there's only it's going to get better from here for Aaron Jones. So those that still have hope, I would definitely agree with you on the buying low on Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you can even, like you said, that's a pretty brutal schedule to start the season as far as opposing run defenses. So even though Denver got, speaking of buy or sell highs, I mean, what a performance by Josh Jacobs on Monday Night Football. He looked it makes you almost wonder why the hell he didn't touch the ball more at Alabama. Yeah. But he looked great in his debut. But back to Aaron Jones, you can almost probably wait another couple weeks when he gets through this gauntlet of tough opposing run defenses that he's going to start the season off with. I just feel like I still saw that burst. I saw him break tackles. It just was the defense of the Bears was absolutely swarming. So I don't expect that to happen every week.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one for sure.
Anybody for you? I mean, I've got a couple more. I can always just keep letting them rip.
No, I think you should go for your next one.
All right, Leonard Fournette.
Okay.
Leonard Fournette. You talk about a little bit of bad luck. Nick Foles, speaking of injuries we didn't bring up, Nick Foles.
So disappointing.
Clavicle. He did break his clavicle, correct?
He broke his clavicle, and he's out, I think.
What was it? Carter or Gardner Minshew? I forget his first name. Minshew came in and actually looked pretty good in relief duty of Nick Foles. But what I'm talking about is Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
He is clearly the focal point of the offense. I did like some of what I saw from D.D. Westbrook and DJ Chark on the outside. Yeah. I still think that they'll be able to push the ball vertically down the football field. But look, Fournette looked lighter. He looked quicker. And you still know that man is the most physical running back in the NFL, or at least among the most physical running backs in the NFL. Still plenty of power to spare, even though he dropped a lot of weight. I thought he looked really, really, really quick twitch and explosive. So that's my guy. If you can go and get Leonard Fournette, he didn't even have a horrible game. He lost a fumble, but didn't find the end zone. I think that we're going to be, and they're not going to be playing the Chiefs every week. So speaking of a team that has a quality defense and they want to try to control the pace with running the football, I think Fournette, as long as he can hold up, and that's always the big thing, if he can hold up, he could have a monster year this year. I was very encouraged by what I saw.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And it is such a bummer about Nick Foles. I mean, to me, I think that drops D.D. Westbrook quite a lot with that injury. But if you're going to pick up someone and a good buy low, Leonard Fournette for sure. I think for me, my buy low would have to be probably, I'm going to say Christian Kirk, just because I think that Kyler Murray was slow to start in this one. But as the game went on, you saw him got more comfortable. I think that he's going to be someone that you can grab, and he's going to be, by the end of the season, a top 25 wide receiver, top 20.
Targets.
Just on
We
targets and opportunity.
we saw a lot of targets for Christian Kirk, which that's always one of the most important things whenever you're trying to diagnose which receivers you like moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
We did see Kyler Murray after what was 3/4 of just atrocious football really on both sides of the ball from the Arizona Cardinals. We saw him settle in. We saw him get into a rhythm. We even saw the play calling from Cliff Kingsbury. He looked like he got dialed in. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's a huge sigh of relief there in Arizona. I just like what I saw. I mean, I like the targets. I think he saw 12 targets in week 1, did Christian Kirk. Yeah, so I'm encouraged by that.
No, I agree. And I think that for me, that's a buy low because I feel like he was some people stashed away really late in drafts. So if you're someone that's suffering from a Tyreek Hill injury, you could easily pick him up for next to nothing, I think.
So I've got one more for you. Okay. And we do have a couple YouTube comments. Wiggins World, Tater, tough locks for the Bucks on Sunday. Yes, it was. And this is a perfect segue into one of my last buy lows, Mike Evans. Mike Evans had a rough go at it. It was tough sledding for the Buccaneers offense, which I was high on heading into the year just simply because I feel like they're going to be playing from behind a lot. Actually, the defense looked okay for the Buccaneers. Really, the 49ers scored 31 points, but 14 of them were on defensive touchdowns. So really the defense looked a little bit better. I thought they did a good job on Tevin Coleman before he got hurt and even held Matt Breida in check. But by the way, go pick up Raheem Mostert if you haven't done so yet. I like your boy Mostert. But for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans, look, this guy is still going to put up 1,000 yards. Slow start, rough week 1 for Jameis Winston. I mean, Winston looked like he may get benched. I mean, you cannot. I mean, I went back and I tracked every single one of his throws.
He might be washing your car next week.
Maybe. But I tracked every single one of his throws. 6 passes could have been intercepted. 6. 13 that were egregiously off target. Again, the man can't seem to hit anybody wide open, even down the field. And the one that he threw to the interception the pick 6 that he threw to Sherman was in a different freaking zip code than Peyton Barber. And it was a 7-yard hitch route.
It's sad. I mean, forgive me, but isn't Mike Evans like 6'6" at least? He's
6'5", 6'4", 6'5".
Sure, and his reach is probably twice that because he's a big beast of a man. So if you can't even get it near a guy that can catch with mitts like that, kind of brutal for you, Winston.
Yeah, I mean, we still saw, even with limited opportunities, Chris Godwin looked good. I still think that the better days are ahead for the Buccaneers pass catchers. But, yeah, against the 49ers, who don't really have that great of a secondary, it was very disappointing to see. But definitely Mike Evans. If someone's low on Mike Evans and Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers, then I would go ahead and try to let that rip. Now, we do have a couple questions. So we'll go ahead. Fredley Jimenez. I don't know. Jimenez. Do you start Montgomery on week 2? So the snaps tell a scary story. If you're trying to
I love the emotion that you're working through on this.
So I'll say this. Nothing chaps my ass more and pisses me off than when you have a coach that you see clearly that guy's the best running back on the team. He's the best ball carrier easily. And I think that is the case for David Montgomery. Mm-hmm. I mean, no disrespect to Mike Davis. He's a solid veteran. And Tyreek Cohen, they tried to give him a carry on the very first play, and he dropped a pitch. Damn, he led the league in fumbles for non-quarterbacks last year, and you can kind of see why. But they ended up moving him to slot receiver, essentially, getting Anthony Miller off the football field. Anthony Miller saw fewer snaps than Javon Wims. David Montgomery saw the lowest amount of snaps for any of the Bears running backs. To answer your question in a very long-winded way, Fredley, I still start him because I believe that Nagy can't afford to not give the most talented player in that backfield the ball more.
No, I agree with you there. You got to start him. I mean, hopefully he's in a flex position, so you've got someone else there. And you didn't draft him too high, but at the same time, I think he's going to have better luck against Denver, even though he's at Denver compared to Green Bay, because Green Bay's defense certainly surprised a lot. But I think that he's going to have a better week next week.
I hope so. I mean, I know that the Bears are facing off against their former defensive coordinator and Vic Fangio over there in Denver next week. And Fangio just got his ass handed to him by John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders. So they may be walking into a buzzsaw over there in Denver, but hey, Turd Ferguson, Sam is an attractive dude.
Thank you. I like to think so too.
There you go. And Fredley, well, he agrees on that with Turd. So speaking of turds and shit, it seems like we keep coming around that, people to shit in the bed and everything like that. Bad game for the Steelers or good D for the Pats? I'll let you dive into that. What do you think?
Both. It's both. I mean, the Steelers historically do not do well against the Patriots. It's something about, walking up to your ex and then, spitting food all over yourself. It's something to that effect that for us that we just completely lose our cool in front of them. We just want to be cool, but we can't be cool for some reason in front of, the prom king or whatever. Like, we just can't do it. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think don't worry. I understand my references. You're tired.
No. I'm giving you an eyebrow up. I was like, that was pretty impressive. I didn't expect you to hit us with that.
You're welcome. No sleep. I got a lot of sarcasm in here. So I think that it's both a bad game for the Steelers and good defense for the Pats. I think that, things will get better for the Steelers. They can only get better because I have tons of hope for them. But I also think that, Pats defense really showed up there.
I thought that the Pats defense showed up. The Steelers offense looked completely out of sorts, and you can expect that from a Bill Belichick-led team on the other side. You know that they don't have Antonio Brown to lean on anymore. Yeah. You knew that they were going to do everything they can to get Juju out of, essentially take him away from Ben Roethlisberger and make him go to other players to try to push the ball down the field. I thought Dante Moncrief played like shit.
No, he was horrible. I mean, I honestly don't. If you're going to pick a second wide receiver to be the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh, it's hands down now James Washington, just for more sync there. I think that going into next week, we're going to see a lot more Vance McDonald. I wish we'd seen him more.
I hope so.
They brought him in too late to me. I think that they should have gotten him in there sooner. So I think that they'll be spreading out their targets differently in order to free up Juju so that he can be, everything we want him to be.
So another question, Wiggins World. Is Corey Davis droppable? No, do not drop Corey Davis yet.
Too soon.
It's a little too soon. I mean, I loved what I saw from A.J. Brown, though. And I was high on A.J. Brown, the rookie out of Ole Miss coming into the NFL. I actually hated that he landed on the Titans, but he had a much better debut than Corey Davis did. So, but be patient with Corey Davis. Corey Davis is still one of the most gifted wide receivers, and I swear, if he wasn't playing in Tennessee, he would put up numbers.
Yeah.
He's that good. It's just, I mean, I will say that if you're like in a 10-man league and the rest of your wide receivers are like stacked and loaded, then yeah, I mean, it all depends on your format, Wiggins.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But for me, in a 12-teamer, I think it's still too early to give up on a guy as talented as Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Do you concur, Sam?
I concur. I feel like week 1 is really hard because games like what happened, and you feel like you want to panic. You want to hit the reset button. But there's some players that, their talent is there and opportunity just has to match it. So I think between weeks 1 and 3, this is where you have to just kind of let it ride a little bit. You do want to pick up those people that obviously with injuries you want to replace. But at the same time, I try not to hit the panic button these days on players like that.
I was going to say, is there anybody through week 1 that you're pushing the panic button on? I'm saying it's Kerryon Johnson. For me, it's Kerryon, strictly because he played again. The game flow was perfect. I mean, they were kicking the Cardinals' ass the entire game through the first 3 quarters until they collapsed in the 4th. Kerryon essentially saw the same amount of snaps as C.J. Anderson, which is concerning because C.J. Anderson, to me, he doesn't do anything special, but Matt Patricia comes from that damn Patriots coaching tree where they like to assign roles and rotate in running backs. And if Johnson, who did lead the way and got the start, and even on that first overtime drive that they got, Johnson was the one that saw most of the work, but he's going to lose snaps to C.J. Anderson.
Yeah, I see CJ Anderson vulturing a lot of touchdowns.
That too. And I'm really disheartened by what I saw as far as for carry on. That's the one guy that stands out to me that it just didn't make sense. Like, the game flow was good. There's no Theo Riddick there anymore. And the only guy he's competing against is CJ Anderson. And we still saw a very pedestrian day from him against a team that really isn't going to be very good this year.
Yeah.
So,
and I think also there's just talent that sprung up elsewhere for them. I mean, TJ Hawkinson. Let me just take a minute. Like, whoa.
Hawk!
Whoa. The Hawkinson. I mean,
I loved what I saw from TJ.
Yeah, that was amazing. So I think that there's just other talents that are popping up that are just kind of going to push the ball around. And so you're going to see those targets instead. But damn, that was exciting to watch him.
Yeah, no, Hawkinson looked fantastic. I particularly was paying attention to CJ Anderson and how much he was on the field. So that was disheartening to me. All right, so we did get another question or two. So it's Fred Lee. Thank you again for joining us. I have Henry Jacobs and David Johnson in a one running back, one flex, and I'm short on wide receiver. Which of those do you trade? I would trade Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
For me, it's Derrick Henry. Even though David Johnson really did a lot of his damage in the second half, I still feel like he's going to consistently catch passes. They're going to be playing from behind quite a bit. Josh Jacobs looked like the real damn deal to me.
Yeah, he's someone you don't have to wait on to, produce. So I think that I'm with you there on I would trade Henry. Plus, with the game he just had, you could get a lot for that.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on your format. If it's standard, I'm a little higher on Henry, but if it's a PPR, look, Henry is not going to catch a ton of passes this year, so that would be the one of those three. By the way, good stable of running backs. Good job. But Henry's the one guy that I would trade for a wide receiver. Again, I would target someone like Mike Evans.
Yeah.
That's the guy I would probably go after. Maybe even Stephon Diggs. Diggs had a pretty rough week in week 1 against the Falcons. Wiggins, where is Bucky tonight? Look, this is the fantasy debate with Sam and Tate. I'm going to remove the little graphic there at the bottom. It says the fantasy debate with Sam and Tate, Wiggins. Please just read the bottom. This is something we do every Wednesday night starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific over there. Sam all the way over there in L.A. I'm in Cadillac, Michigan. I say we live pretty similar lifestyles, don't you think?
Yeah, we live super similar lifestyles. Actually, I mean, our off time revolves entirely around football. So yeah, in that we have that in common. But I hope Bucky's doing well. He's always so much fun.
Oh, Bucky, I'm sure he had a great time. He was actually in the Chicago Hooters with Levy to kick off our fantasy focused live show that comes at you every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, if you are joining us for the first time via podcast, go ahead and drop us a review. Also, if you're joining us here on YouTube, go ahead and punch the like button. And if you haven't yet done so, subscribe. We drop weekly fantasy football content, and we love all the interaction. Thank you so much for the support. And until next time, later, says the Tater, and I'm interested to see if Sam actually has a sign-off line.
Cheers for the beers.
I'll meet you at the pearly gates. I'll bring the beers. I'll bring the beers. See you, everybody.
Bye.